Hello flosstube viewers, this is AM Dreamingstitcher. It's the third Sunday of the month, so I'm back to tell you what I've been up to since April. I have a couple of finishes, I have some works in progress, I have a new start, and I have some questions about a kit. And it's not all going to add up to a whole lot. I didn't plan any supplemental material this time around, but I figure, a short video with nothing but stitching is probably less boring for some of y'all. So I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. I am not very well organized. That's why you're hearing all the ums this morning, because I'm trying to think about what I really should be saying here. I will start with a small project that I showed you last month that was a start at that time. I recall telling you that I wanted something in nice bright spring colors, and so I started a little bitty dinosaur project from Jan Lin. Well, the needle was marked Jan Lin. It was actually designs for the needle, which is a Jan Lin company. And I think of this little fellow as my poster child for backstitching, because without his backstitching there's not much to him. And I borrowed my employer provided iPad to take a photograph of what the little fellow looks like when he doesn't have his backstitching. This was him all stitched up with everything except the eye. I was holding off on the eye because it was done in the same color as one of the back stitches. But you can see he's a dinosaur, he's on a landscape, but he's a little bit of a blob. There's not a whole lot going on there. And I call him my poster child for backstitching because with his backstitching, he's quite a cute little fellow. He really pops out, he's all done. He's not at all the same thing as the photograph anymore. Instead, he's a nice little dinosaur who has a tree with actual leaves. He's got outlines. He's got outlines to his mountain and his body, and it's just so much better. I think we all know what a difference backstitching makes, but there's my little tiny example of how clearly it makes a difference. So I did get him done. He is not fully finished for no particular good reason, because he is very small. You would think I would have been able to do that. All I have to do is get him into this frame. But I just haven't got around to washing and ironing him. I don't work with silks, so I pretty much always wash and iron my projects before I finish them. And that's all he needs, so that I can cut him out and get him in there. This, by the way, is his kit. As I said, designs for the needle, but it's a Jan Lin company. And he's a fine little fellow that I got at a local crafting store that isn't in business anymore. I think I may have told you that story. Okay, what else did I work on besides my tiny dinosaur? Well, I told you I had a couple of finishes. My other finish you have never seen before, because I started it after April and finished it before now. I did show you the kit, sort of, because there was no picture of the finish, but it's another one related to my clan crest that I did for you. Another project from Carolyn A. Topp of Williamsburg, who did a lot of Scottish designs. This one was from a vendor who came to the Celtic Festival, and it's probably too blurry to read, but it says Scottish Treasures, and they came at least 1 or 2 years. I didn't go all the years they may have come, I don't know. But they are actually based out of San Diego, and they have a website, and their phone number is still good according to the website. But I haven't called because there's no sign on the website that they carry any cross-stitch kits, at least not enough to speak of that they would advertise them online. So I don't know whether one can get things like the clan badges and stuff that I've been making, or if that was just something they came across once and were selling at the Celtic Festival. But I did show you that. I had that, but I didn't show you I was working on it. And here he is. He's all done up. He is the pipe major or drum major. I'm not sure which. Probably a pipe major. I don't know. Does a pipe major have to have pipes? I ought to know the answer to that, and I don't. But he also is kind of a poster child for backstitching, because nice as he might have been without it, he wouldn't have a face. He wouldn't have all the elements that you can see are backstitched there that make quite a difference. He's got red, black, white, gold, and silver backstitching in him, so quite a lot for a small piece. I'm not sure I entirely always followed the directions properly for some of the things. For example, they called for a different number of strands of backstitch for the kilt and sash, they said, but I don't think they meant the gold sash. I assumed they meant the red sash. So the gold sash does not have more stitching in it for all the difference that makes. I didn't even know if it makes a difference. I also had a question about, I don't know if that's at an angle where you can see, but he has a scabbard running down from the hand that's at his side, and they wanted one strand that was done with everything else kitted up in there was DMC, so I assume it was a DMC metallic. They said use one, and that was just so thin and anemic I didn't think you'd be able to see it. So I went ahead and put 3 down. And there's also metallic in things like his mace, but I don't know if you can see that either because it looks very thin to me. But it was done with 2 strands because all the other back stitching was indicated as 2. So I assume she meant 2 for the gold and silver also. But anyway, back stitching helps. There he is. I think he's a fine little design, and I did not finish him because I'm waiting to see till I finish my Piper, because I still have one more of her kits, and that is a Piper. And like this one, I won't know how it looks or what size it is or anything until it's all stitched up, because there's no indication on the packaging. There's no image of the final product. There's no dimensions given. So I'm going to finish that one and see if maybe they can be finished up together somehow in a way that matches. And that's why I didn't make any effort to finish that little fellow yet. Okay, what else did I work on? I do have some works in progress. I think I'll show you one of those next, and then I'll show you a new start, and then I'll show you another work in progress. Okay, the work in progress that I'm going to show you is the one I think I got maybe the most progress on. I don't know. But it's my Titanic that I showed you last month. At that time I had all 4 of the smokestacks and some of the superstructure and a lot of the bow. Enough that you could certainly tell it was becoming a ship. But I hadn't worked my way all the way to the back. I hadn't gotten down to the water or anything. I had done none of the sky or any of that. Just the smokestacks. Enough of the superstructure to tell that I was working on it, and a good chunk of the bow. So, what have I done since then? I will show you, and pardon me, there is one loose thread on there. I have done all of the sky. I have done the smoke from the smokestacks. I've done that strange little red blob in the middle of the sky that's going to be a flag hanging from something. It's not a mast, I don't know what you call that. I've done the part up front that I think is the crow's nest, but without all the back stitching that this is going to need. Speaking of back stitching, you can see that there's quite a lot involved on the upper decks of the boat there, the ship, sorry, and tons of portholes with French knots, and there's a whole lot of stuff that's going to have to go in here that I didn't hear yet. But you can see there's definitely more to it. I've done some things back here behind our ship. I've done most of what's above decks. There are a few more small colored dots. A lot of the small colored dots I think are representing people, passengers. There'll be French knots that are kind of flesh colored that I guess are people's heads. I don't know. There's going to be more up there that I haven't put in, but I've got a lot of it. You can kind of see what I'm talking about if you look. I wish I knew the parts of the boat, ship. But along here, there's a lot of little things that look like figures. So I've got to do what's going to make them pop out. They're standing there seeing the people off on the shore. But there's definitely progress. I've worked my way to the back end of the ship now and working farther down. And that little indentation in the middle is where we have one of the people on the dock kind of waving a handkerchief or something. So I finally got down to where the people are going to start. Alright, that's my Titanic. And I said I would show you a new start next. It's not much of a start. And I did show you the kit. It's a kit. I did show you the kit that it's from some time ago in an earlier video when I talked about things I might be stitching in the future. This is one of those things. But I did not think there was really enough of it to show you. Here is this piece of this wonderful project. So instead, I'm going to leave it a mystery for now. I hope you don't mind, but I want you to guess what this is going to become. Obviously, well, I can't say obviously, but hopefully you can tell that it's a leaf. I have a leaf on black Aida cloth. It looks pretty fluorescent almost in real color. This looks pretty dull on the camera, but it's actually very bright. And there it is, all by its lonesome in the middle of a large piece of black Aida. Since it's a kit, there's not going to be a whole lot of margin on it. There never is. But there's my start. Why do I have a start? Well, a couple of different reasons. There is a little bit of infection from all those folks out there doing their mania starts. I would have no issue at all finding enough things to do a start for every day of the month. I could probably have done that. But I want to work on the projects I'm already working on. And that would just slow me down, so I can't say that was the impetus behind this. Instead, it's just that I had finished the Dinosaur, I had finished the Piper, and I had it in my bag when I was over looking after Parent. I was tired of Titanic that night, so I pulled it out and put a leaf down just out of curiosity to see what it was going to look like. It's not really the best travel project, but I may continue to do that after Titanic is done. We'll see. One never knows. Okay, what else did I have to show you? By the way, speaking of mania and other floss tubers and all the stitching out there, I find myself very envious of many of the stitchers out there, which is kind of pointless. Envy is a pointless emotion because being envious does not change anything, no matter what it is that you're envious about. It's a pointless emotion. It goes nowhere. And what I'm envious about is that they get so much stitching done. I wish I could get as much stitching done as some of the folks that I see out there. I'm very happy for them. I am delighted that they're able to make that much progress. I have so many things I want to stitch that my envy stems from wishing I could make that much progress, which obviously I can't. But that's all just an aside. I've got a leaf, I've got a Piper, I've got a tiny Dinosaur. It is what it is. So, what's my other whip that I have to show you? I actually have a number of comments on it. He's a little bit stuck at the moment. I always say he about the projects. I don't know why. There's no telling. But it's my Birds of a Feather. You may recall I'm doing the top one here with the berries, although I have plans and materials for the bottom one too. And the last time you saw it, I had a lot of this top branch here and a little bit of berries, and this one that's hanging out in the sky, I had the branches and parts of the berries. That was it. Well, now I have loose thread. I have the berries up there completely done. There is one more berry that needs to come and hang down off of this branch. He's not there yet, but I told you he. But all of those berries are finished up. There's back stitching in this piece too that's obviously missing. And the branch got carried from where it was kind of in the middle all the way over to the side of the project. But more obviously, I now have a bird with a hole in the middle of his head. So I want to talk about that and explain what's going on with the hole in the middle of my poor little bird's head. I actually have a couple of comments on the bird. One is that I often come to projects that are kind of lessons learned, and there's a lesson learned on this one. If you look at the stitching model, it's a little hard to tell because it's tiny. I personally see a lot more contrast in the different grays in the bird's wing, from dark to medium to light, than I see here. And it's because two of the colors are so similar. We've got DMC 413, let me come back a little bit, and DMC 317. And they're both so much alike. You might be able to tell that they're different there, but they're laying side by side, and in the model, one of them looks much more of a medium gray. Here, they're both so dark, I don't know if you can actually tell one from the other. I know I have a great deal of difficulty telling one from the other. And one of them has a little bit more blue to it, one a little bit more gray, one's a little warmer, one's a little cooler. But that's the only difference. And I thought, did I get a bad patch of thread or something? And no, I looked at my thread card, and 317 and 413 really are quite a lot alike. You can tell that's the one that's a little bluer maybe. That's the one that's grayer. But they're so much alike. I thought, why is that? Why does it look so different in the model? And so I read very, very carefully what the chart had to say, and they give multiple floss possibilities. They have anchor, they have JP coats, they have DMC, and they tell you right there that their model is stitched in anchor, and that if you choose one of the others, yours may look different. Well, mine looks different. Obviously, the anchor conversion is not that close a match. It can't be. And I've looked online, and they're using the standard conversion for that anchor number to that DMC number, so it's not the fault of the chart makers. It's just not a great match. And they advise in their instructions very much against mixing one brand with another, because they're designed to blend well with other colors of their own brand in terms of color matching and such. So I wouldn't go out and buy one skein of anchor, even if I could. There is no one local that I could get that from. I'm not even 100% sure that the not so local needle workshop that's 80 or 90 miles from me has anchor. I think they probably do. But that's one comment on my bird. The other comment, besides the lack of contrast in his gray, lesson learned. I don't think I would have wanted to kit the whole thing up in anchor though, because I believe I told you, I know I told you, that I kitted a number of projects at the same time, and I'm planning for the leftover floss from one to go into the next, and so they really needed to be DMC, something very easily available. But the hole in his head, what's going on there? I did not notice when I was stitching up, or kitting up, pardon me, that they called for Bulgé. Now that's a little bit weird, because at the Krynic site they explained that Bulgé was their old marketing name for a blending filament and a number 8 fine braid that were all they made back in the 70s. And they said if you come across a chart that calls for Bulgé, chances are it means either the blending filament or the number 8 fine braid. Okay, well the problem is this chart is not from the 1970s. This chart is from 1990. And long ago as that might seem, that leaves a little wiggle room in terms of, did they really mean the blending filament or the number 8 braid, or did they mean something else? I don't know. All it says is Bulgé. Also, I had none. Oh, I've got plenty of Krynic on hand. Let me show you. I've got a drawer full of Krynic. None of it is the called for 005 HL High Luster Black. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is I don't know whether they want the blending filament or the braid. I actually only have one braid. This is the only braid I have. All the rest of mine are blending filament. I'm not sure how to tell which they mean, because every other time I've worked, with one exception, that I've worked with metallic threads or blending filaments, they were provided in the kit, so I didn't have to think about who they came from or what to do with them. On the pipe major there, as I said, it was all DMC materials, and it was a 3-strand divisible, so I assume it was DMC metallic. But the other times that I have worked with them were on a couple of these charts. I remember showing you one with the birds before, but I did some of these fish. I did some with seashells. And in these one-nighters, when they call for blending filament, they say Krynic, and they give the letters BF after the number, so that there's no question it's blending filament. I don't have to have any doubts about what I'm doing. So that's why I have all that Krynic on hand, is from charts like that, but I don't know what they want in his eye. So what I ordered, I did not order both. Might have made sense to order both, but since I had no black, I ordered the Krynic 005 and the Krynic 005 HL. And I threw in a brown too, and they should all arrive tomorrow, and I'm going to go ahead and do it with the blending filament. I don't know if that's what they wanted. The other thing that makes it very confusing to me is that these guys, for the eyes, pardon me rambling on about all this, but I was confused, and maybe somebody out there can actually clarify this. For the eyes, they say black eyes, Bulgé 005 HL. For the back stitches, they say Bulgé 005 HL black, bird's eyes 6. The other ones, all the other backstitching indicates the number of strands. They even say 1 strand of floss for backstitches unless otherwise indicated within the legend. Do they want 6 strands of blending filament? The braid, as far as I know, from looking at the one I have, is not divisible. I don't think I could get 6 strands out of that. What do they mean 6 for the backstitch around his eye? So I'm supposed to do the eye itself, presumably with 1 or 2. Everything else was 2 strands. I don't know. I'm at a loss. I mean, I've got the Bulgé coming. I'll put black in his eye. It's a tiny thing. It'll get done. It'll be fine. But I have no idea what they meant. I find this chart confusing for a lot of other reasons too. The way they printed it, it's a color chart, and they tell you very directly, partially colored squares might be when a backstitch splits a colored square, or when a fractional stitch occurs. That's not exactly their wording, but in all cases, symbol-less squares are stitched in the same floss color as like-colored adjacent squares which do contain symbols. It's horrible on my eyes trying to figure out what adjacent square they're talking about that's the same color. And in order to make their little picture look pretty, their backstitch is the absolute outline of the bird, but you can't tell what's going on with the stitching underneath. I don't know how to explain that, except that sometimes it's clearly a 3/4 stitch or half stitch. Sometimes it's such a tiny fragment of a stitch that you're not sure if they want you to put a little partial, kind of like a 1/4 stitch in there, or what they're doing. It's not at all clear how much of a stitch you're supposed to put in some of these places. Since I can't show you the chart, I can't make it any clearer than that. I'm sorry, but very confusing. I don't think, much as I like my little birds, I wouldn't go out of my way to get another chart from that company because I'm having difficulty understanding it. But there's my progress. A lot more to go. Lot more to go. Okay, so I babbled on much longer than I thought, and I'm sure a lot of it was very dull, but I do have one more thing to ask you about. And that is, I have a kit. If anyone out there is familiar with these, I didn't need any more stuff, but I did just get this. I don't know why. I have spending problems, I guess. It's DesignWorks. It says, "Welcome friends." I don't know if that's actually the direct translation of the Celtic or just sort of. But it looked very pretty. I thought the price was reasonable. It was about the same price as getting a chart of the same thing. But I kind of feel like what I got was a chart of it, because this is 10 by 13, I believe. Yes, 10 inches by 13 inches. So for our European folks, that's like 25 centimeters by something larger than 25 centimeters. There's only this much floss in the entire kit. I cannot believe that that's enough floss to finish that pattern. In some cases, there's a single strand of things that clearly there ought to be more of. And so I looked online at reviews, and I saw reviews from someone that complained that they tell you right off you may not have enough floss to finish the kit. I'm thinking, really? I haven't opened it to see what they say? But that's ridiculous. That does not look like nearly enough for a 10 by 13 design. So if anyone else is familiar with DesignWorks kits, I have some, but I haven't started any. Do they run short on floss? Are they easy to convert to other colors? Should I just go ahead and swap out this floss and use something else? Because I don't want to be halfway through it and have to keep contacting the company and asking them for more floss. I just don't know what to say. I'll see what the actual directions say when I get around to opening it. I'm not going to do it immediately, but wow, that does not look like enough. And the one they have the most of is the gold color, obviously. You can see there's a lot of it, big thick bundle of the gold color over here. But in the actual design, I really don't see that much. Yes, it goes all through, I guess it's all these lines and things. It's wrapped around everything else. But is there really that much more of it than any of the other colors? Wouldn't you think some of those other colors would need just that much? Yeah, I don't have a lot of faith in the floss in here. If anyone else has done this kit, and you happen to see my video, let me know. How did it come out? Was there enough there? Oh well, I don't know what to think. Anyway, that was my stitching for the month. As I said, I wish it was more. I did, I guess, get a tiny bit in on the mania, even though that wasn't my thought behind it. I have a new start. I did start this fellow in April, so he doesn't count for mania. I have made progress on a few things. I did not meet my stitching goals. My stitching goals were to finish the bird and all the berries that are up top there. And obviously I missed the whole clump of berries. I missed the one dangling here and a whole clump in the middle. So I did not get all the berries, and my bird has a hole in his head. My stitching goal also included getting ears on my rabbit, and my rabbit didn't get touched. So when you see me next month, if you can put up with another rambling video, I hope to have the ears on a rabbit and some more of those berries done, and who knows what else. It's sort of as the mood strikes me. I hope to get a lot more done in the next month, even though it's only 4 weeks instead of 5. But I may end up house cleaning instead. I don't know. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Thank you to those who have taken the time to subscribe and to comment and to like. That's always appreciated. It's not necessary. You can watch without any of that. But it is sort of encouraging to have those things going on. So thank you very much if you have done any of those things. Our spring continues to be beautiful, but it's starting to get hot. I told you in an earlier video I do live in the desert southwest, and summer is just around the corner, and it's going to be getting hot. We're starting to get a hint of that now, but it's still beautiful out. One of the beautiful things I have is I have a young bunny out in the yard. He's a cottontail, and he's about half the size of the parent rabbits. So I hope that the hawk that is also living in the neighborhood doesn't meet up with him anytime soon. She was flying over, she or he, I think it's a she because I'm pretty sure it has a nest in one of the neighbor's trees, flew over yesterday and gave one of those, hawkish screes. And I told her, don't hang around and eat my bunnies. I know you have children to feed, but my bunnies aren't it. Go find your lunch somewhere else. I like my yard rabbits. I can't help it. And I've seen lizards and all kinds of birds, more birds than usual. We've got a bunch of cactus wrens hanging out near where I feed the barn cats, because they're stealing the dry food that I put out for the barn cats. We had a whole bunch of, I think they were maybe Arizona cardinals, because someone, one of the caregivers told me that she thought that's what they were. I just know they're little brown birds with a lot of red on them. I don't even know if that is a bird that comes down to where we are. But yeah, lots of different birds, not just the usual sparrows and doves coming to the feeders, but lots of beautiful things to see. So I hope that you all are seeing some beautiful things in your day wherever you are. I tend to pick out things that I'm seeing outside and outdoors, but there's beauty in all kinds of other places and ways too. So I hope you're seeing that. Thank you for watching. Sorry for babbling, and I will see you or talk to you next month. Thank you so much.